Every man wants to be wanted, not tolerated, not merely accepted, but craved. Not because he begged for it, but because the very air around him changes when he walks into a room. But here's the truth most men refuse to face. She doesn't fall for your words. She falls for what her body feels before a single word leaves your mouth. Not logic, not checklist compatibility. It's a sensation, a spark, a wave of presence that rolls over her skin like a whisper she didn't expect but can't forget. You want her to desire you? Then stop chasing her with questions and start living in a way that answers something inside her. Because when a woman truly wants you, it's not rational, it's not planned, it's not even polite, it's primal. But here's what separates a man she fantasizes about from the man she forgets in the morning. He doesn't seek permission to be confident. He assumes it. He enters every interaction like he's already the one she's been thinking about, like her desire is inevitable, not impossible, not because he's arrogant, but because he's tuned in. You can't fake this. You can't script it. You have to become the kind of man who walks like he's already been chosen. She watches the way you move, not to check your style, but to measure your certainty. She's not waiting to be impressed by your achievements. She's searching for one thing. Does this man know who the hell he is? Even if I never give him a second glance? Let that sink in. You don't need to chase her validation. You need to awaken her curiosity, not by being loud, not by showing off, but by becoming a man who carries tension like it's part of his bloodline. A man who doesn't fill silence with words, but fills it with weight. A man who can sit across from her, not needing to sell anything, and yet, she starts leaning in. That's what makes her nervous in the best way possible. Because when a man is centered in himself, she's pulled out of her own thoughts and into the mystery of his presence. That's not game. That's gravity. Here's your first shift. Stop asking, will she like me? Start living like you're the man she secretly hopes walks through that door. Because when you believe it, she starts to feel it. She starts to wonder, who is this man who needs nothing from me, but makes me want to give everything? And that's when you stop being just a man and start becoming a fantasy she doesn't even understand yet. Let's go deeper. You want her to want you? Build a life that feels better than her fantasy. Because here's what no one tells you. She doesn't fall for you because you want her. She falls because she walks into your world and it awakens something inside her. Most men think they need the perfect line, the best outfit, the smoothest joke. But a man who has structure, vision, and purpose, that man doesn't chase attention. He pulls it in like gravity. He's not rushing to impress anyone. He's too focused on building something sacred, himself. He doesn't need to announce his power. She can smell it when she enters his space. She looks around and sees order, simplicity, strength, not perfection, intention. His bed is made, his kitchen is clean, his books have notes in the margins, his routine is sharp, his eyes are rested. And when she's there, she feels something rare, a sense that this man isn't waiting for life to happen. He's already in motion. She doesn't walk into a bachelor pad filled with noise and distraction. She walks into a space that feels like a quiet storm, disciplined, unshaken, magnetic. And suddenly, her thoughts change. If his world feels this good with clothes on, what would it feel like to be naked inside it? That's not lust. That's longing, triggered by the sacred structure of a man who leads himself. You want to make her melt? Make her curious. Make her slow down. Make her feel like you're a man who builds something every day, with or without her. Because she doesn't want to be your project. She wants to be a guest in your kingdom. That's the second shift. Stop trying to impress her with how much you want her. Start making your world feel so rare, that she wants to undress her ego just to get a taste of it. This isn't about pretending you don't care. This is about living with such focus, such conviction, that she wonders, where does he go when I'm not around? Who does he become when no one is watching? That curiosity? It's fuel for her desire, because it tells her, you don't live for her reaction, you live for your standard. And the moment she feels that, you become the man she wants to follow, not because you asked, but because she felt the pull and stepped in willingly. Let her feel the stability of your space. Let her feel the precision of your path, and she will start to fantasize, not about your body, but about your discipline. That's how you flip the dynamic, not by chasing her attention, but by becoming the man she doesn't want to leave. You want to know what kills attraction faster than rejection? Speed. Most men rush, they talk fast, they lean in too close. They try to jump from spark to flame before the fire ever catches. But desire doesn't live in motion. It lives in moments. And the men who master attraction? They know how to stretch a moment until it becomes memory. Because here's the secret. The slower you move, the more her body starts to feel. When you pause between words, when your eyes linger without desperation, when your hands move like they already know the script, that's when she stops thinking and starts feeling. Seduction isn't about saying the right thing. It's about being the right thing in the silence between things. It's about the calm in your voice, the patience in your touch, the safety in your tension. Not the safety of softness, the safety of certainty. Because when a man slows down, when he speaks like time bends around his breath, when he leans back in his chair instead of forward in pursuit, she feels it. Her breath changes, her voice drops, her eyes start tracking your subtlety instead of your loudness, and her nervous system, without her realizing, starts to sync with yours. That's not chemistry, that's energy control. Because in that moment, she isn't deciding if she wants to sleep with you. She's wondering how she hasn't already. That's what makes her crave your presence. It's not the kiss, it's not the flirtation. It's the way her body starts to betray her logic. She starts asking herself, why do I feel safe and turned on at the same time? Why does his silence feel louder than other men's compliments? Why does my body lean in when he hasn't even touched me? And the answer? Because you didn't rush. You understood the power of space. So here's your third shift. Stop chasing moments. Start mastering the pace of them. Lower your voice. Pause between sentences. Let your eyes trace the air between her lips. Let your fingertips move like they've got nowhere to be. Because when your energy feels like a secret she's not supposed to know, she doesn't run. She remembers. And it sticks. In her chest, in her thighs, in the way she breathes when she's alone, and your name floats through her mind without permission. This is seduction, not the act, the atmosphere, not the performance, the presence. Slow down, and she'll start to see you, not as a man chasing her, but as a man who moves the entire room without even raising his voice. That's the kind of energy that keeps her wondering, how does he do that? And wondering is the first step to wanting. There's a language she speaks, but not with words. It's in the pause before she pulls away. It's in the flick of her eyes when you're not looking. It's in the way her fingers play with her hair, or how her breath catches for half a second when you step closer. Most men never notice, because they've been taught to ask for everything, to get verbal clarity before they even dare to feel attraction, to wait for green lights spelled out in text messages, to fear their own instinct. And so they miss it. They miss the open window in her silence. They miss the yes hiding in her hesitation. They miss the invitation that doesn't come with a signature. But a man who understands subtle power, He doesn't wait to be told how to feel. He reads her body like a map of intention. He picks up the rhythm in her tone, the micro tilt in her posture, the hesitation in her goodbye, and he trusts his read. Because he knows this isn't about pressure, it's about presence. She won't ask you to touch her, but her body might whisper it in a dozen ways, if you're paying attention. And when you catch it, you don't lunge, you don't grab, you don't dominate the space. You move like you've been here before, like your confidence is woven with care. You touch her lower back, not to own her, but to guide her like she's already said yes. You hold her face like it was made for your palm. You lean in with stillness, not with need, because you're not kissing her to take something. You're kissing her to return her to the place she's already dreamed of. That's not just seduction, that's emotional fluency. And here's the truth. When you act with calm confidence, when you lead without asking for approval, when your touch says, "I see you and I respect this moment," her body thanks you before her mind catches up. That's the fourth shift. Stop waiting for her to spell it out. Start listening to the language she's already speaking. Because women aren't waiting for men who guess. They're waiting for men who know, not men who force, not men who beg. Men who can sense, men who can feel, men who lead with soft dominance and make her feel safe in the uncertainty. She doesn't want you to explain every move. She wants to feel like you knew exactly what to do without her saying a word. That's not dangerous. That's irresistible. Because when you move like that, with attention, with strength, with rhythm, you don't just make her body respond. You make her soul say, "Finally." A man who doesn't ask for doors to open. He walks in because he knew they were never locked. That's the real game. Not control, not performance. Precision. Read her without fear. Lead her without force. Touch her like her silence already said yes. That's how you become a man she doesn't just desire, but a man she trusts with her most vulnerable yes. There's a moment, right after the first kiss, after the first night, when most men start to unravel. They think it's time to prove themselves, to text more, to reassure, to hold on tighter because they're afraid of losing her. But what they don't realize is this. What made her want you was the mystery, and now you've smothered it. You see, women don't fall in love with certainty. They fall in love with the question mark, with the pause in your rhythm, the silence in your story, the way you don't hand over your soul just because she gave you her body. When a woman expects you to chase, and instead you return to your mission, she feels something rare. A man who values his own path more than he values her reaction. Not because he's cold, but because he's whole. He doesn't disappear. He doesn't ghost. But he doesn't flood her with validation either. He lets her wonder. And in that wondering, curiosity turns into craving. Because now, she's not the one being pursued. She's the one asking questions. Where did he go? What's he thinking about? Why do I miss him already? That silence, it's sacred. Because it tells her one thing she wasn't ready for. She doesn't control the pace anymore. And that shift, that subtle inversion of energy, that's what drives obsession. You become the man she compares every other man to. Not because you chased harder, but because you were harder to define. A man who is available, but not predictable. Present, but not needy. Engaged, but never owned. This is the fifth shift. Stop filling the space just to feel secure. Start embracing the silence that builds gravity. Let her sit in the echo of your presence. Let your absence mean something. Because if you rush in to reassure her, you collapse the very tension that made her heart race. It's not about playing games. It's about staying grounded in your sovereignty. She's not looking for a man who floods her inbox. She's looking for the man who leaves her replaying every glance, every breath, every unspoken word, because he left something behind. A void only his presence can fill. So instead of asking, "Should I text her now?" ask yourself, would the man she craves need to? Because when she feels that power in your absence, that quiet restraint, that air of unbothered certainty, she doesn't just remember you, she starts dreaming of you. You become the voice she hears when she's alone, the silhouette in her fantasies, the standard she never thought she'd meet. That's not manipulation. That's masculine discipline. It's the art of being unforgettable without forcing it. Because the man she obsesses over is the one who stayed loyal to his rhythm, even when her warmth tried to pull him off course. Let me tell you something that'll flip your whole perspective. The men who get remembered aren't the ones who try hardest. They're the ones who need the least. Not because they're cold, not because they're detached, but because their sense of self doesn't sway with her attention. Most guys flirt like they're auditioning, asking for approval with every joke, every compliment, every nervous glance, and women feel it. The second your body tightens because you're unsure if she's into you, she knows. The second you text her again and again just to make sure she's still interested, she knows. And the second she senses that your confidence is hanging on her validation, the fantasy shatters. Because no woman fantasizes about a man who needs her more than he needs himself. What she does crave, a man who flirts with freedom, who walks into the room like the game's already over, not because he's cocky, but because he moves like he knows the ending. That's the man who unnerves her, because he doesn't flirt to win. He flirts to create a moment, a charge in the air, a subtle electricity, an invisible string that wraps around her curiosity. He doesn't reach out and grab her. He brushes past with a smile and leaves her wondering if it even happened. He doesn't linger after a compliment. He drops it like a secret and walks away before she can even respond, not to manipulate her, but because his validation comes from within, not from the flutter in her lashes. And that's the sixth shift. Stop trying to prove you're worthy of her attention. Start acting like you've already got it, and she's trying to prove she deserves yours. Flirt like a man who doesn't need her to say yes, because your energy already knows she will. That's when her walls start to lower. That's when her guarded instincts get confused. Because now she doesn't feel pressure. She feels freedom. Freedom to be playful, to step in without fear, to desire without being hunted. Because you're not chasing, you're just being. And that's the difference. You're not a salesman trying to close the deal. You're the experience she doesn't want to end. When you do this right, she stops thinking, "Does he like me?" and starts wondering, "Why do I feel so safe and so turned on at the same time?" Your silence becomes seductive. Your stillness becomes a test. Your presence becomes the standard she didn't even know she had. This is the final lesson. She doesn't want to be convinced. She wants to be consumed, quietly, confidently, completely. And that happens not when you show her everything, but when you leave her wanting more. The man she desires the most is the one who can smile, step back, and say with his energy, not his words, "You're lucky I'm even here," and walk away like her wanting you is just another part of the plan. There comes a point when you stop trying to be liked, when you stop trying to be chosen, and instead, you become the man who chooses himself. And in that moment, you stop being a maybe in her life. You become the standard she holds every man against. Not because you begged, not because you impressed, but because your presence did something no one else's did. It shifted the atmosphere. Your voice, still in her head days later, Your silence, still echoing when she lies awake at 2 a.m., wondering how you made her feel so seen, without ever explaining yourself. Because you didn't chase her. You didn't perform. You didn't try to be the nice guy, the funny guy, the predictable one. You were just you, unapologetically, relentlessly, undeniably you. And that energy, it didn't need validation. It didn't need a script. It simply walked into the room like a truth she hadn't met yet. That's when you stop being a person and start becoming a memory. You become the man she replays in her mind, not because of what you did, but because of how you made her feel in moments when you said nothing. Your presence made her heart skip. Your stillness made her imagination spin. Your eyes made her forget every other man who ever tried to impress her. Because here's the secret. Desire isn't about action. It's about impact. It's about who you are in the room when nothing needs to be said. It's about walking like you know she wants you, not because you're arrogant, but because you've done the inner work to become a man worth craving. And that's what makes you irreplaceable. Not a player, not a flirt, not a manipulator. A man, solid, certain, still. And when she meets that man, she doesn't try to own him. She just wants to be close to him. Because something in her body already knows, this is what I've been looking for. A man who leads with presence, who moves without need, who flirts like he has nothing to lose, and everything already in motion. That's when she stops comparing. That's when she stops running. That's when she stops pretending she's in control. Because now, you've become the feeling she can't explain, the question she can't stop asking, the fantasy she doesn't want to wake up from. So walk like the man who's already been chosen. Speak like the man she won't forget tomorrow morning. Touch like the man who reads her without permission. And live like the man who never had to prove a thing, because his presence already said it all. And if you truly think like this, she won't just sleep with you. She'll remember you in silence, long after the night is over. That's how the game changes. Forever.